Hello and welcome to Hak It. I'm Sakshi, the CEO and founder of Foodhak. In each episode of Hak It, we'll be discussing females, founders, and of course food with some of my favorite people in the world. I've brought together some of my fellow founders to talk about their journeys, the challenges, the highs and lows of being a founder. And of course, we end each episode with a little nugget on food as medicine. I'm super excited to share this with you, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to Hak It. Today, you have one of my favorite people joining us. Welcome Siddhi, who's the co-founder of Why Hangry. A couple of episodes ago, we had Heinen, her other co-founder, very different energy to her. And so I'm very curious to listen to Siddhi and her story on this episode and just see the complementary energies between Heinen and Siddhi. So welcome, Siddhi.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
Yeah, tell us.
And oh God, you've already had my better half. So let's see if I stack up.
I want your better half. Like I said, you guys have this amazing complementary energies. I think you guys got so lucky meeting each other, sharing a similar vision, taking that leap of faith in each other, moving from a high-paying comfort job into starting a company, Why Hangry, which today is a phenomenon in the UK, in my opinion. Tell us your story and what led you there and your vision for Why Hangry.
Yeah. So, before I even start, I agree. I think I got so lucky, and people often ask, how do you find a great co-founder? What is that process? And I think we both were each other's first and it just worked out. But I think there's a reason for why all of that happened. I think we've just constantly decided to work on it. It's like the most important relationship in my life that I actually decide to invest time in and I don't shy away from, way more than my husband. But yeah, it's been amazing. But I think the journey of Why Hangry, I grew up in India. I went to America for my undergrad. I did computer science AI. I then decided I wanted something fun, cool, trading. Completely different story. Got deported to London. So then came to London, didn't know anybody, but then started this job in trading. Loved it. Thought it was the best job in the world. Why does anyone do anything else? And then that lasted 4 years. And I think after that, I started having this midlife crisis where I realized there is more to life. My dad's an entrepreneur. Not the sexy kind, but the one in India who, you really grind it out, but then you make something of yourself. And I just saw that there's bigger things possible in life. And I think for me, then I was like, okay, right, I'm going to build something. I just don't know what. I don't know with whom. And then I think that was the phase where I was hunting. I always used to have this notepad of ideas where anything that I thought was broken or there was a problem, I'd write it down. So it was 100 plus ideas. And by the way, some of them were terrible. But anyway, so life went on. I had my ideas. I was surrounded by people. And actually, environment is very important. I was surrounded by people who would want to leave finance but would not want to do anything about it. So it's very demotivating. And I was like, oh my God, I'm stuck. I'll die here, doing this. And it's not that fun. And then I think things progressed. The idea for Why Hangry was something very natural. I grew up in India, like you. We have help and cooks. And it's just so normal to have home cooked food. And then going to New York and then London, it was wild that we just went to restaurants and takeaway. I actually felt unwell and I just wanted a chef. And I tried to do that for myself. And I was like, there's this idea, I just need to find the chef. I met Heinen, and honestly, at this point, we'd already been working together for a year and a half. I loved her. We were two females on a trading floor. She was sales, I was trading. We would argue. And then at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. rather, we'll be like, okay, great, let's go get a beer now. It was so fun. It was such a great environment. And then finally, I think we discussed with each other, look, there's more to life. This cannot be it. If we died tomorrow, this would be very unfulfilling. We shared different ideas we have. She immediately was like, this makes so much sense. Even I would want a chef. I just want great home cooked food. Let's do this. And I think that was the beginning. I think we had an idea. I found someone who loved the idea and who knew that there was something behind it. And I think that was the starting of Why Hangry, really. And I think back then, I will admit, we didn't really know what shape it was going to take. So I think vision comes a little bit later. Back then, really early on, we were I don't know, this just sounds fun. Let's go try it. And I think now we really have figured out our vision. Like, we want a world where anywhere you go with your loved ones, family, maybe it's your home, it's an Airbnb, you can have a great chef for your birthday, for a special occasion, and you can have it in a few clicks and at the same price as a restaurant. Like, that's crazy. And I think for us, like, the really meta vision is like you're bringing people together in real life over great food. So it's actually all about the people, the conversations. And we know firsthand, like a dinner party versus a restaurant, no comparison. Like, the best memories are made over like people inviting you over. Actually, as an immigrant, I feel like I just used to wish, can you please invite me over? Like, I would love some food, you know? What are you doing on Thanksgiving? So I feel, yeah, so that's what we're building. And like the hope really is to make this place more connected, more IRL, and all over food.
Amazing. I mean, I totally agree with you. I feel like I have a strong preference for, dinner parties at home. I think they're so cozy, they're warm, they're so personal, they're intimate. Like, you when you're invited to someone's house or when someone comes over, they get a little taste of who you are, in your home. I've actually been a user of Why Hangry myself, even before I knew you, actually. And I was starting out Foodhak, and I was just, trialing out new ideas, and it's been great. It's been great, super convenient. So you mentioned you studied computer science, AI, right? And AI is super topical today.
Yeah.
Like, technology is changing so fast that it's a little bit scary, it's a little bit exciting, and it's a little bit daunting. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on AI and how that's kind of changing the landscape you're in, we're in. How do you kind of see maybe some drawbacks of AI or some things you're skeptical of?
Yeah, super interesting. So back when I studied artificial intelligence at Columbia, it was 2013. It was not that sexy.
Yeah.
And it was actually really tough because now you have like this model and everyone plugs into it. Like, everyone's doing AI and it's so easy. But back then, I remember writing this program and you were trying to train it to learn by itself. And I was just sat there thinking, oh my God, why am I not able to finish this assignment? But it was so different. And I think the leap we have made since then is insane. So I think what we can do now is kind of crazy. And I think it is scary because people don't understand how that's going to change things for them. But I think a very simple take for me is we are still at a stage where AI can make things faster. But AI currently can't fully think for you. And I think for me, like, if I just talk of use cases, like if we're going to write some content, like written content, great. Like, make it better, quicker, produce a bit more using AI, great. That's like the most basic use case. I think then for us on our platform, like for Why Hangry, when chefs send back quotes to customers about like dinner parties, we actually built this AI tool that like cross-checks against like what the customers want. And it's a great little tool. It's quick for chefs because imagine chefs are responding to like 100 different quotes a day. And you're kind of going autopilot. You don't know what you're responding to. And suddenly it's like, that doesn't match. Oh, great. It's just made your job a little bit easier. However, I'll now tell you like the drawbacks of AI. If we use this one step ahead, and if I say, great, I understand everything a chef does, chef doesn't have to do anything. Let me just use AI to like scour all the dish and send back stuff to their customers. That's when it starts to fail because everything starts feeling very homogenous. And I think we've built these things where actually once we built this little tool where we were like, okay, everyone loves to hear back from a chef. Let's create a AI intro message. So the AI wrote the message and chefs hit enter. I thought that was going to be amazing. It was really bad. Like at the end of it, the message finished by saying, hey, I am on this culinary journey. Would you come along with me? And I think that's where you realize, okay, great. Every time we use AI to make people's jobs easier, like the boring stuff, that's amazing. And like that's where it's used. But then I think we're not there where we're seeing, okay, AI in itself is used for everything and then just go. So I think there is that sort of gap. And I think even when I look at Y Combinator companies and what is being built, it's so interesting because I mean, the common theme is that no big company has really figured out the use case yet. Like, obviously, you have these like foundational models, but what is on there that's being really helpful, no one yet knows. But the areas that it is useful is a lot of the boring stuff, like automating stuff that you just can't be bothered, or like it's just like the same thing. It's like there is a pattern to it, or you're making your life easier. And I think, yeah, for us at Why Hangry, like I can see, like for example, building product. it's harder to use AI. I think you still need to do the discovery. You still need to figure out the problems customers are facing. And then when it comes to implementation, there might be a little feature which just makes it a little bit easier because you were doing something automated. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think we find that too. I mean, we've got our own clinical models that we've built using generative AI, and we use a whole host of different models. We use text models, we use some specific models like, we use GPT-4, BioGPT, all these different types. Yeah, and I think it really helped us. Like, okay, some models are obviously for, natural language recognition, and some are for inferences. And then, so what I mean by that is, like, imagine clinical research on food, right? And we are drawing and we're understanding what this research is saying about a certain ingredient and links with disease, either preventing or causing, right? And, once we kind of do that in our models, we then had to kind of bring in human doctors to further validate the accuracy of those models.
Yeah.
And then once we brought in the doctor and said, look, our model says with 70% accuracy, X equals Y, do you agree? Here's the clinical research that's saying that on food. The doctor would say, well, I think I would assign 85%. And the model would then relearn. So again, this is where, I think we've also kind of built these models using artificial intelligence and human doctors to have something that's insightful, clean. It's like the Holy Bible for food as medicine with the combination of human and technology, right?
Honestly, I love what you're doing though, because I think even what you said, so much of that clinical data pulling would be impossible by a human in any sort of substantive
That's what
means.
I found.
Yeah, so I think the use case you described is brilliant. And I think exactly, well, I love what you're doing. I'm also a user and customer of Foodhak quite regularly. But I think, that's such a great scenario where you, because like as a regular person, I'm going through all these like digestive issues. I think although Google has all this information, it's terrible. And I think you don't know what someone has written as a blog versus what's real science. So I think what you are doing is so incredible because then you can actually get your hands on something that's substantive.
Yes.
And also it's not anecdotal.
Yes.
It's statistical.
Yes. It's based on cleaned clinical research.
Yeah.
It's like a cleaned up Holy Bible of clinical research on food. I actually found that because when I was starting out Foodhak, I didn't have the courage like you to just jump and go and build a startup, frankly, because I didn't have someone like Heinen maybe in my life as a co-founder pushing me to do it. So I was doing this on the side of a full-time job, a side hustle.
Yeah.
Trying to actually read clinical research myself, work with some of these alternative medicine doctors, create recipes, do soft launches, and understand if people actually like this way of eating. This way of eating, which is free from, clean label, and packed with superfoods. The food is lighter. It doesn't have that full, like I'm bursting, I want to like throw up kind of feeling. Sometimes that some of these takeouts do. And once I saw a good response, that's when I was like, I think this is like worth doing and building a global company and making an impact on people's lives. But that was my learning that actually, if I were to do this full time, no human brain can keep up with clinical research fast enough because of exactly what you said. You don't know if it's a blog, you don't know if it's peer reviewed, you don't know if it's funded by a big pharma company to bias the results. And Google, you try typing it in. Hey, I have, an autoimmune disease. What should I eat? I mean, good luck. Good luck. You can spend hours, right? There isn't, because it's just not personalized enough. So that's when I started hiring these machine learning scholars quite cost effectively, like in India. Students who were looking for internships, and, the initial part was sort of data cleaning and stuff. So 3 years later, finally, we're about to release this as an app. It should be coming any day now, which helps you a free food personalization tool. This tool we've used to create awesome products that you guys have been loving. Yeah. Right? Now imagine having this at home.
That's insane.
And being able to build personalized recipes for your goals. So that's how we're actually using AI, and but still it is a little bit daunting that the pace at which this technology is moving, it's a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about AI. Let's talk about female founders. So both of you, female founders, the company, I think Heinen mentioned last time, has majority of female chefs. So how do you, you've been in a very male dominated environment before. company culture wise, tell us like some of the differences you see. And was this deliberate? Was it a positive bias towards hiring these chefs, or it just happened? So
actually, we have majority female employees, actually, not chefs still, because it is crazy. Like, where are they? And I think like when the tables turn, you really start to realize like, yeah, it takes effort to realize that you're building something inclusive. I think for us, the reason we're a majority female team is actually, I don't know. It's not like we're going out there saying we want to hire females, but I think there's something about having 2 female co-founders that just attracts a lot more female applicants. And I think I know on the flip side, for example, when I was in trading and I spoke to this group of high school students that had come over, it was guys and girls together. And I like explained to them about trading, and I used like stats and odds, and like, you put on this risk trade and it's so exciting because you have this portfolio of 500 million. And I said a lot of stuff very quickly. And then I was like, who's excited for trading? All the guys raised their hands and none of the girls did. And at that point, I felt as though I was having a reality check. And I looked at the like high school girls and I actually asked them, I was like, hey, so how come you don't want to like try out trading? And they were so quiet. And one of them said, look, I visited the floor. I didn't see very many women, and I don't know if I want to join there. And that was the first time I realized actually the environment matters, because it's how safe or comfortable or heard you feel. So I think with Hein and I, indirectly, we have now made an environment where females are welcome, and like all female issues are not female issues, they're just issues. And I think, for example, I think little things like periods, right? But it's like, it'll be so obvious that it comes up in a chat, or it'll be so normal that that's a thing. And if you're having like an energy sway because of that. So I think having female founders just makes it easier to have female applicants. Now, as for female chefs, it is hard. And I also know female chefs have a harder time versus male chefs. And an example is a female chef who has kids. She's still the primary caretaker, so she will first need to make sure she has someone to take care of the kids, and meanwhile maybe the male chef will win that booking, because actually he can just show up and he doesn't seem to be the primary person who looks after the kids. So I think, yeah, female chefs, we don't have a 50-50, and I think our applicants are open for everyone. People tell us it's so exciting that we're female founders, which attracts more diversity, quote unquote, but yeah, still not there.
Wow. And so talk about like, what was it like, being in this male-dominated environment, company culture-wise? What were some of the sort of pitfalls, the challenges you faced? And like, what made you take that leap into being a founder? Like, saying no to this cushiony job? Because I often get asked this question, where it's like, look, you have this comfortable job, we've got kids, and, how am I going to manage my time? Like all of that, because like you said, like usually females tend to be the primary caretaker, despite being a founder. I mean, we discussed some of this at that dinner table that you hosted the other night, which was an amazing, powerful dinner table, right? Most of the women were female founders, but they were still the primary caretaker of their home, of their kids, and suddenly saying no to a cushiony job and jumping into this uncertain environment. Walk us through some of those cultural changes, challenges.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have kids yet. So God, I don't even want to discuss what that looks like. And like, I will be coming knocking down your door when that happens to ask for advice.
Honestly, I don't know.
I don't know how you do it.
My advice, like literally, would be, I also don't know. Like I just put one foot ahead of the other every single day. I mean, I have I think it's all in the mind. And I want to ask you that, because you mentioned that. High vibe attracts high vibe. So we'll come back to that question. Yeah. But I do think it's about training your mind, finding joy and enjoyment. Like for me, my kids are my de-stress. They genuinely are, So we'll come back to that question. But yeah, walk us through some of the challenges.
Of course. So I think being a trader, female trader, I loved it. In the beginning, I realized, so there are positives to being a female. in a male-dominated environment, that you stand out. You cannot hide. And if you are okay with that spotlight, it works in your favor because then everything you say is at least heard. So I think I loved the fact that I could say something, I could make noise, and I was there. Like people knew me, and that was exciting. And I think that was when I started. But as things progressed, and I think when I started, I didn't even like the word feminism, and this is wild because I just didn't believe in it. I was like, what do you mean everything's equal? And I sat there and I said it so stubbornly because I just thought if you work hard, you can have the exact same results. And I remember one of my clients back then, she worked at like BNP Paribas. She was 40 and she was like, you just wait till you're a little bit older and you might maybe make vice president. And that's when you'll see there's a difference. And I told her there's no way. And I think I was like shouting at her. And I came back and the next day my team was like, oh my God, are we going to have this client or what? We became really close friends. And I was like, look, I'll tell you how things go. That's exactly how it went. Then I became VP. And I think at some point I realized people kept calling me aggressive. And oh my God, maybe I am. But just being told you're aggressive on a floor full of aggressive AF males was so ridiculous, Sakshi. And I mean, look, I think you'll relate to this. Like, of course, I say what I mean. If I'm angry, I'll tell you I'm angry. Like, I will go out there. But so is every other guy out there who's a trader next to me. So I think being called aggressive in a very aggressive male-dominated environment was annoying because it had a negative connotation. And then I think slowly I realized little things. It was like the most micro things. And I'll give an example. Oh God. I feel like if any of my peers hear this, they'll be like, where did this come from? But I think it is true. And I talked about it then also. So for 4 years, let's say when I was kind of a kid, people around me, let's say if a female shouted out, hey, this is a trade we won. Like the guys around me would kind of be like, hey, that's a trade you won. Like they'll just mimic it and then everyone would laugh. And I would laugh because it was just funny because they were mimicking like a female voice. I don't know. And then kind of 5 years in, one day I just heard it. Like it was like for the first time I heard it. And I just asked them, wait, what is the joke? And I think because I was so young and I was being brought up in this male environment, everything they did, I did. And I kind of was like the pseudo. And I do have way more masculine energy than feminine. So everything was cool. I love bands and like, I just love a joke. But I kind of was just thinking, wait, is the joke her voice? And that's not funny because actually that is an environment that's not welcoming. And I'm still laughing because it took me 5 years to realize that wasn't funny.
That's basically a bro code.
Yes.
That is what a finance bro code is.
Exactly. And I was in the middle. I thought I was one of the bros and then I kind of realized I wasn't. And then I think there were little things where I just think like we talked about environment. Environment matters. If there are more people like you, things just become more normal for you. And I would say I don't go into races that much, but like women and men, they're like 50-50, right, in this planet.
Right.
So you can talk about feminism and meninism, aka they're 50-50. Like
Right.
I don't want to talk about brown people and Asian people, etc., but 50-50. And I think generally, let's say, all the guys will just tend to go for a pint. It will just be so natural.
Yeah.
And with my peer group, I would insert myself. But I think generally, what about with your clients? What about the guy clients that are I being the guy traders? And I think there's only so much of a bro you can be. And then so many of the deals are won when you're out there and you're sort of chatting. So I think then I started to I was aware as to how unequal it was and how I was... like the joke was on me that I thought it wasn't. And I think that's when I started to be like, right, okay, like, I started to like show some thunder. But at that point, I also realized there was more in my life I had to do. So if I was in trading, I think I would have had like a very uphill battle because I started to realize how things weren't equal. And there was a lot of anger consuming me. But I think when I made the switch, I could kind of set the playground for how things work. And I think now in this company, of course, when we go out and fundraise, like you need to almost channel the inner man, right? That you need to make sure you're confident and you can like speak about what you want because there are some statistical differences between how men and women approach things. Whereas in your own company, you can build for a very common like play field where no one feels like they're not being invited because two guys just go hang out and then everyone else is left out. Yeah.
I love that. And I can relate so much to that when I was at SoftBank.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, I was like the first female investor in the London office where the Vision Fund was headquartered. And I can also relate to the word aggressive, where I'm like, yeah, but you have to be aggressive to win a deal. And whether you're a man or a woman or whoever, whether you're young or old, whether we're in this like very competitive industry of investments and trading and things. And if you want a deal, you have to be an aggressive negotiator. So why is there a difference between an aggressive male and an aggressive female? And why is aggressive seen negative for a female? And so this is where I'm coming to my next question. So I actually trained my mindset saying, I think being aggressive is not negative. I am proud. I'm aggressive on a deal because my job requires me to. And I'm very diligent at my job. And therefore, it's a good thing. If you don't like it, no problem. No problem.
I love it.
And so this is about, again, training your mindset, right? So you often talk about that. You're an avid reader. Right? I love following your Instagram, book recommendations. Power of the mindset. High vibe attracts high vibe, right? I think you said that. Mm-hmm. So talk to us about a little bit about that and your experiences with that.
Yeah, so I think just circling back to everything I said sounds like a little bit where I'm highlighting some of the negatives, right? Or how things are not equal. But I think when I show up, and I think obviously you do need to keep your mind in check. So I think the number one thing is your mind controls everything, and what you feed in it really matters. And I think I realized all of this starting 2 years ago in COVID, where I used to wake up and I'd realize I had negative thoughts. And all of us know, or a majority of should know, that our brain produces more negative thoughts than positive thoughts. And it's just like how evolution happens. Your brain is trying to protect you from tigers around, so you don't get eaten, even though we're now not in a world where tigers will eat us. However, your brain doesn't know that. So I think I kind of knew this theoretically, but then when in COVID, because there was so much free time, I'd wake up every day and I'd be like, wait, I have so many negative thoughts. And I feel like, and I'm someone who just like jumps into action. Like I have a bias towards action. So I would take them, get really frustrated, and then start like, telling people things or like diving into work. And I realized, no, I can rewire my mind. And in COVID, every single day I would wake up and I told myself I will just catch the negative thought. I'll just label it negative. And then I'll let it go. Like I cannot engage with any thoughts I get about a person, about my work, about life, if it's in the morning during that time. And Sakshi, it worked. I realized at some point, my brain started to realize negative thought. It just let it go. And then as time will move on, the thoughts cleared up. So I realized, wow, like training your mind to actually be more positive is so important. And I think that was like the beginning. And I think then I've been very fascinated by, because I tend to have very high and low emotional swings. Like I think if I'm happy, like you will know I'm happy. I'm loud, like you'll hear me, I'll be buzzing. Like the energy is just everywhere. And then when I don't feel good, I feel like internally I am spiraling. Like I'm like, oh God, like is this good? Is this not good? So I think it comes down to remembering your mind can take you anywhere. It's kind of your spin on things. It's not the facts. Because facts are, let's say the sky is blue. But one day you could look at it and say, oh my God, it's like the best thing ever. And then the next day you could think, oh my God, it's so terrible. It's always blue. It never changes. So I think number one, I know your mind, like, you need to feed it good things. And like mind controls everything. Then I think number two, high vibe attracts high vibe. Yeah, I love that. I think I read so many books. I was like, that came from Manifest. It was a very cool little orange book. And it was great because now let's say you are in like a positive mindset day today, or like the energy. You will go out and you will just see opportunity everywhere. You will speak to someone and you'll say, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. Let me think about that or implement it. But when you're feeling low, and I know this firsthand, I would discard everything. Like someone will say something good to me, I'll just say, oh, you know what, that was just a fluke. And then something would happen, you'll just walk past it. You wouldn't even see that. So I think what two highlights is, it's so important to keep yourself in like the phase one in check, and to realize when you are in this positive mindset, you will go out and attract all this great stuff in your life, and it will just come your way. And it's really important. So I think it doesn't mean I don't go through like the lows, but I think now I'm actively aware. Like I think when I go through like a little bit of a low energy phase, I just think, oh my gosh, like I don't know what it is, but I'll label it. And I think I'll be aware. So I'm not out there just spiraling everywhere internally and rejecting all the good stuff that could come into my life.
love that. I love this whole labeling mechanism and like slotting it in your brain library.
Negative thought.
Yeah, it's good to first. I think the first step you're saying is to recognize what it is.
Yes.
The next step is to kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer of this myself, actually. And there's been recent clinical research to show the power of the mind. So they did an experiment, like a pretty large experiment, on people going to the gym. Those people who exercise without concentrating or thinking about exercising, those people versus those people who didn't even exercise and just focused on, let's say, like your arm muscle. You're just like focusing for 15 minutes a day that like, I'm going to build like big arm muscles. They're not working out. This is a clinical study, guys, a real clinical study. So 2 groups, there were actually 3 groups. So the third group was someone who was exercising with focus. So while you're like, I don't know, doing pull-ups, you're focusing on the part of your body that's supposed to build muscle, right? So there are these 3 groups. One group exercising without focusing, without putting their mind into it. One group who was not exercising at all and just focusing on the body group that they wanted to see an improvement in. And one group that did combine the 2. So they were exercising with focusing on the right parts of the body. So actually the best results were obviously in this group of people who were exercising while focusing on parts of the body. But guess what happens between these 2? One that never exercised just kept focusing on building muscle. This is hilarious. And the other group that exercised but didn't focus. This guy ended up building more muscle and achieving those goals without exercising. That's the power of your mind. And this is a clinical study, a pretty big clinical study. And now like a bunch of these institutions are talking about it. That's the power of your mind. But like you said, at least that's how, at least what I feel, to build that power of the mind, that focus, right? There's a lot of self-work that's required, especially when you're a founder.
Oh my gosh.
Because our job as a founder is, to be honest, in the early years is to like set the foundation of the business and to hire the right team, the product, be product obsessive at all times. But then, the job becomes to be out and about telling the story, because people have to see the vision through our eyes, because it's our vision, it's our passion, it's our baby, right? Nobody else can convey that story. So you have to be out and about, raising money from investors, 99 out of 100 conversations. And by the way, it's very normal to have 100 conversations, even for someone who comes from the world of investing. 100 is like very common. Basically, you're out there with a little, bowl, please give us money. Here's our vision. Here's our baby, will make you money. You have 100 of those conversations and 99 will say a no. So you as a founder, your mind has to be strong enough and say, I'm building, after that no, it's okay, your loss. I'm building the greatest thing on planet Earth, and you have to take that negative energy, turn it into positive, believe it, make others believe it, right? So it's extremely hard to do that, and I think it requires a lot of self-work. And when I say self-work, it includes your daily routine. Like, what is it that you do for yourself? Like, I have my process that I've now come to respect a lot. I don't like to skip parts of that process. Otherwise, I can't take this negative energy and turn it back into positive, right? So how do you unwind? What is your process on training your mind, body, soul, in achieving this mission?
So I love books. I think books is like my hiding place. When I just don't know what's going on, I go read a book and I'm like, yes, I figured out a nugget. And I think it just makes my mind feel sharp and it feels like it's learning. So in terms of routine, I'll wake up, and if I don't do this bit, I start to feel super out of control. So I'd love to read in the morning, like just 20 minutes, 25, 30. And suddenly I feel I've done something for my mind, for myself, and it's not the company. Because I think often founders, and it's true with probably you, me, like I am why hungry.
Yeah.
And that's crazy, because I think at some point then like every little high and drop in why hungry is like my like rise and drop, and that's too much volatility. So we'll read a little bit of book. Things like a little bit of meditation or visualization, so good. I think something where I can just be at peace. I love coffee, like I'm obsessed with it. I love grinding my beans, getting my beans. So I think the whole process of like hearing the little machine, like it's like a whole 3-minute process. And I think it just gets me to kind of zone out. I think you're just doing one little routine of yours. I think that's great. And I think then I try to get some sun on my eyes if we can get it in UK and go for a little walk. So it could just be like walk around the block. Because I think a lot of times when I'm just inside, which is so easy because we remote work like 4 days a week, I feel cooped up. And I think the moment I get fresh air, I just feel, yes, this is so exciting. I got this. So I think in the morning, I need to do maybe like 2 or 3 of these things to just feel cool, I'm ready. And I think then, and I don't always do it sometimes. I think I'm so excited I forget. But I think I have a journal called Room Research. Every day it flips to a new page. And anytime I find myself just a little bit restless or like just uncertain, which are quite a few days, I will just go and journal. And I'm an engineer by background, so it doesn't mean like writing like a book. It just means bullet points. Everything's like a bullet point. How am I feeling today? This. Outcome for today. This. Why do I feel this way? And I think once I do that little journal, like my mind just cleanses. So I think that's kind of like the morning routine, and like some version of that sets me up for success. And I would say for evening, I'm not very good at the wind down. Oh my God, help me. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I think I've been traveling. I don't really wind down recently and it's tough. So I think maybe having kids is the answer to that. You tell me, how do you wind down, Sakshi?
I wouldn't go that far, to be honest. Don't have kids just for an evening wind down. There's much easier ways.
Sakshi told me her kids were stress busters, and then I got
suddenly I get a phone call saying, hey, now you're my babysitter because I need an evening wind down and I'm not into this. So I think for me, like my absolute necessary parts of the process is like, for me, food is a non-negotiable, sticking to a food hack type diet for majority of my week. So when I'm out is fine. I'm not going to create a fuss over it because I don't believe in fussy eating either. But for when I'm not out, I'm a food hack customer through and through. I'm like the first one who's like going to our, fridges and like looking for staff meals. I'm a subscriber. So if there's no staff meals, I actually have my own subscription. And I find that to really help me with my immunity. Touch wood, I was just saying this to a couple of my friends who've joined these new training programs that I've been on. And I'm actually on this other training program as well. And like they've seen a massive dip in their immunity. And I do believe it's probably because we're consuming too many processed proteins. Those protein shakes, they're all chemicals at the end of the day. So hopefully at Food Hack, we'll come up with a cleaner protein shake. But my point is my food is a big differentiator compared to theirs. And I do believe that, with me and my kids, even my husband, I've seen, pretty solid immunity. So food is a non-negotiable for me. My default has to be an anti-inflammatory diet that's free from clean label food hack. The second one is exercise, and I'm very mindful about it because you can easily miss it in a hectic week where you're out, about, this, that. So like today I woke up super early. Like waking up early is like one of my favorite things to do. It's not always doable, but like just having a morning to myself before the kids wake up, like I had a nice massive workout, all of that. So exercise is my second one. Sleep is my third one. Like 7.5 hours of sleep is like super important. Yeah, it's super important for me because it sort of determines my mood. Completely. And then after that, I think journaling is like doing a little bit of a gratitude journal to realize the joys of life because, we do have this amazing life and we chose this journey. And yes, it's hard to be a founder, but we chose it. We have a bigger mission. It's so satisfying to be like building something with an amazing team, to achieve this mission that'll help people on the planet with their health or sustainability or whatever, So there's a lot to be grateful for. Just reminding yourself in this London busy life, doing a bit of journaling. And I would say the last one you said, evening wind downs, like once a week I do a bath and I try to do it on Sundays, like when I put the kids to bed. And I think that with like magnesium salts, a candle, with a bit of meditation music, like do something for yourself, like celebrate yourself. You're a queen. You've achieved so much. You're setting yourself up for the week forward. You have so much responsibility on your shoulders. Do it for yourself. Show up for yourself. So like a proper, amazing bath. I even put some CBD oil in there. The bathroom is just smelling amazing. And it's something I've done for myself. and it's relaxing. You have a great night's sleep afterwards. Do a bit of journaling and meditation afterwards, and you're going to sleep like a baby, and you're ready for this like week ahead. So that's my tip for you. It really works for me. Try and do it.
I love it. I will try it.
Let's move on to another interesting topic that we were discussing before we started this. So both of us have spent some time in America. You studied there. I studied there. I even worked there, both West Coast, East Coast. And there is a difference in energy and community in the startup ecosystem, right? I mean, Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, right? London is no comparison. Like, there is a real lack of community. I feel a lack of real community, especially in the female founders sort of side. What are your thoughts on that? And, what can we do to sort of improve that? How important is it to have it?
Yeah, so community is everything. I think as we started our startup, it's a fact that every single progress we had was because we spoke to someone or like we asked someone some questions and it made it easier. And this person was a founder who had done this. And I think just having access. So we had to create that for ourselves because we come from finance and we kind of didn't have that. But now that I have it, and I think like YC is a big network. So I think because of that, sometimes I'm just complacent. I'm like, okay, great. There is like this group whenever I need to tap into it. I will say, so community is incredibly important. There's a very big difference between UK and US, and you feel that energy difference. So I went to US, I think like 2 years or like 1 year ago for the YC, like an alumni meetup. It's buzzing. Like people just want to talk about ideas. And I think in London, it feels a little bit more beaten down. Like it just feels like it's lower, like the energy is less. And in London, so that's one. Number two, I think it's everywhere. So the way people describe SF, for example, is you go to a coffee shop and then you'll run into someone that's someone like a startup person or a VC. And it's just the whole ecosystem resides in like very close quarters, which is actually a recipe for magic. That's how college was in America, right? Like you just walked out and like you saw your friends everywhere. Whereas London is different. It's just bigger. It's more like I feel like it's not as dense, and I think you don't run into these things. And I think I just spent half of my time scheduling stuff, which is wild. So I think everything you say is true. And then the third is actually like investor appetite, risk appetite, and I think I'll just say it, but here the question is like what can go wrong, or like what are the risks, or prove your traction, or why would this work ever? Whereas in US it tends to be, so what is your vision? Like how big could it get? And I think generally that's kind of like a investor ecosystem mindset that seems to be different. And then obviously that mirrors how founders are, because how you talk is how you're being questioned around you. And actually then it's kind of like everyone's in this ecosystem rubbing off on each other. So when you say that, it's like so sad. But it's not that sad. And I think then your question is, what can we do about it? Because what we cannot forget is London is still one of the bigger ecosystems. It's probably third? Or like the second one after America. So it's like, okay, fine. Like we don't have it that good, but things are probably easier here. There's slightly less competition, whereas America then probably is a breeding ground for more. So I think there are positives, and that's how I choose to see it. What we can do about it, I love building communities, and I think there are some people building communities like female founders. There are like ambitious founders. There's so many different ones. But you are right. Something feels disjoint, where I think it feels like it's like a WhatsApp touch point and you're there, but you're not really, like it's not a part of a parcel of your life that you go see people or you go see founders as like your natural to do. I don't know. I need to think a little bit more. I think obviously, it comes down to space or access or people just being in it and being able to actually talk about problems rather than showing up and thinking they need to pitch all the time. So I think maybe more spaces where it's just founders and they're talking about actually what problems are they going through so they can each inspire each other. I don't know. I'm just like thinking at the top of my head, and we've done some of these ourselves, but they're small dinners, So in my mind, I'm like, how do you scale this? Or is it a scale problem, or is it just actually smaller people coming together? So for me personally, I think 8, 10 is like the great number. I think I can speak to them. I can tell them the real stuff going wrong. But obviously, that does not fully scale. So I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I find there to be a massive difference. The more and more I go into this journey of Foodhak, and, as years pass by, and like I'm one of those lucky people who tend to, have access to communities in America. Like I get invited to these conferences because I have an amazing investor base, people who are long on me. And so they, so I get the chance to leave the UK, go to the West Coast, go to the East Coast, like go to India, go to the Middle East, so I have I'm one of those, lucky people, right? And it gives me the chance to explore communities, founder communities, investment appetite, cultures, around startups in these different parts of the world. And I can tell you, like, the energy in the US is like none other, right? There is nothing called saturation in the US. It's insane. It's insane. And yes, you're right. Like the volume will probably be higher in terms of competition, like loads of people, starting companies, this problem solving mindset. Like once you graduate from a university, doing your own startup or joining a startup is sexy, whereas here in the UK, there is still a very strong, training mindset of, we're going to get into investment banking or, become a lawyer or accountant or whatever. And like startups are now starting to be up there. Like, yeah, it could be cool, but like not straight from university. There's a massive difference. So we have, we have a massive energy problem here and not just actual energy, but in terms of just, excitement and being bullish on the future, being bullish on someone's ambition. Exactly what you said. Like, from an investor appetite perspective, you're going to see like 9 out of 10 investors are going to be like, what could go wrong? Like you said, rightly said, they're going to flinch at like, valuation multiples, which are at par to the US, whereas in the US, 9 out of 10, you're going to see like the beam in their eye looking at you and being like, oh my God, this is amazing. And, and when you say the valuations, like they don't flinch, because they believe in the future, not in the what could go wrong kind of thing. So I personally think that is UK's biggest problem. It's probably because we haven't seen the Metas, the Googles get, the LinkedIns, the, all these massive, amazing tech companies get built in our backyards, 30-something-year-old becoming like billionaires. Like we haven't seen that in this ecosystem, which is probably why the investors are more, wary. So I understand it, but we need to change it. Otherwise, there's other countries in the world that are fast taking over, right? Like, I mean, look at the Indian ecosystem. Look at the Indian markets right now. They're on a tear, right? Like China, before India was China, right? I mean, look at the Middle East. I mean, the whole world is gravitating towards the Middle East to raise money. Like the biggest funds in Silicon Valley, they're all there. Everyone's there, from Travis Kalanick to, Adam Newman to like everybody. Like after criticizing the Middle East, there was this middle phase where, so the point is that being, trigger friendly, when you see a good business, a good founder, having that enthusiasm, excitement for what can they build and how can I be a part of that story? Like the UK really needs to start internalizing it. Otherwise, they will get left behind. I mean, it's great to have UK AI being in the news recently, right? But like AI is moving at such a fast pace. Like Elon Musk says rightly, his advice to budding entrepreneurs is please start manufacturing. Someone has to manufacture products of tomorrow, right? AI will not be enough to feed your stomachs. It'll be enough to help you with like your day-to-day, tasks, but someone has to manufacture. So just because a company is not, the big whatever AI situation, doesn't mean you start looking at it with a, skeptical eye. So I do feel, based on my travels and stuff, like, there's a massive problem in, the sort of excitement, energy, ambition levels, The risk appetite needs to improve from the investment community. In terms of like communities in general, look, you have to also acknowledge that these countries have a lot of amazing communities being built. A lot of people are trying to build them. I think in the UK, like this is my effort, this is our effort to do it, where I get a lot of questions from younger females, from India, from around the world, with a lot of questions that I find some of the questions are quite female specific, like I was saying, because females are just generally so 360 minded, right? Where you have to just think, like our risk appetite is also quite, measured, right? So I think It's great for females who are maybe on the edge of deciding whether or not to pursue entrepreneurship, to hear stories like yours or mine or others, to kind of find points to relate with and to be like, okay, there's a solution. There's a challenge, but there's a solution, right? And like, how do you manage self-work, your mindset, positive mindset? How do you tackle investors, how do you think about all of that? So this is our effort. And I think that more of us need to continue to do this. And I think you do it really well by doing your dinners, because we can only do what we can do, right? There's like 24 hours in a day. We have a business to build. Like, these are small steps. This is my small step. Your small step is that sort of dinner you bring together. That was a very high energy dinner of, I think, 16 amazing women, all from like different founder stories, backgrounds, sharing with each other. It was very energizing. It was very authentic. I think that's the kind of stuff we can do. For me, I also find it really refreshing. Like recently, I got invited to this amazing retreat, where this amazing person hosted us at their place in like Spain, brought together a small group of like 10 people, no agenda. So for the first time, you were not pitching to anybody. There's no agenda. You were like coming out, openly sharing, look, this is the challenge I'm facing. And then suddenly, when you're like, not in that repeat mode of pitching, because you always have an agenda, whether it's a deal, whether it's a, investment or whatever, suddenly you're able to actually think from a third person's point of view and come up with new ideas. I came back so refreshed, So I think things like that we should talk about and maybe try and arrange,
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think while you were speaking, I think you're completely right. And what you're doing, it's all about representation, seeing the founders and the stories. I mean, the first thing is the country needs to grow them. Great. So I think we all need to get there. But B is like knowing the stories out there. So I think for me, it was Payal Kadakia Class Pass. And I was like, oh my God, dancer, Indian, if she can do it, I can do it. And I think the more stories out there, because people can't even name female founders. It's like a truth. Like, you just like kind of think, oh, who are the big ones? Oh, I don't know anyone. Oh, it's not for me. I think that's awesome. And then 3, yeah, I agree. I think just like small dinners, I think for us, I realize we can do more of these. Like our community can host them. We can create an incentive and more people open up like small ones across, let's say, London, UK. And if it takes off, it'll be really fun because I think people are so lonely and they want connection. And I think exactly like you said, the retreat, it sounds amazing. I think founder retreats are incredible. Just a space where you are yourself and you talk about the problems, not about your pitch. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and it was a diverse set of people. Some were founders, some were investors, some were, advisors, etc.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just...
And it worked.
Oh my God, so well. Because you're able to, like, for the first time, take a break, get out of this small world you live in. Right? And be able to see the strengths and weaknesses and the path forward and the pros and cons. It was really amazing. So we should try and do something like that. Like,
I love
bring
it.
together.
That actually reminds me of like on a different level, and it's like not exactly the same, but YC office hours. Like the biggest takeaway from YC, or like one of the highest value add was when we'd get a partner, and for us it was Michael Seibel, we'll go in and you kind of just bounce around ideas. He'll ask you some questions and he didn't tell you what to do, but just the act of being asked really good questions created the biggest change. Like we created a pivot. We were like, oh my God, we get it. We figured out the customer demographic. And I think in a way that has been replicated by a community.
Yeah.
But it's like who are these people who are asking you the right questions to help you actually sit back and reflect? I actually love that. And I think I try to insert a lot of that in my life, but I think it's so much better done with its different people because it's all about diversity. It's about someone else has an idea or like ask a question. Yeah, love that. And I agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about, female founders. We're different from male founders, which is fine. We're biologically different. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. What do you think is your superpower as a female founder?
I think this is such an interesting way you phrase the question because when you say, I don't know. I think I'm a founder. I happen to be female. I think I am very fast at executing. I have a lot of energy and I think, I can like really make things happen, get stuff done. And I think I suppose I don't spend too much time thinking of how I am different from men. And I think actually in a lot of rooms, like let's say if you go into pitch or even you're working on your idea, you just need to make it happen. So I think in my mind, I'm a founder. And I think it's interesting on how, because I think when I get asked the question, for example, like how do you enter a room knowing like the odds are stacked against you? I don't think about it. I think I don't go in thinking, gosh, I only have a 2% shot, whereas like that guy might have like, I don't know, like 20x higher. I think you just go, I think I know now my strengths, and anything I approach, I just make sure I am authentic to that. So I'm aggressive like you. I love it. I am who I am. I think I've become very comfortable with that skin. I speak fast, I do things fast, and I will just get stuff done. And I think I just own it. And I think that's kind of how I like to show up every single time. And if there is something someone is doing well, I will observe. So I think I'm constantly learning. So if there's something like, let's say, a male or like a founder has done well, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool. Need to do some of that. Or need to go actually sound more confident around this one thing I've been saying because I've been apologizing. Let me stop doing that. So I think, I love to grow and I'd love to observe people and kind of bake that stuff in. And for females, I think they can learn a lot observing some of like the male founders out there and say, okay, what is that something they did well? Let me get myself some of that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think just an attitude of absorbing and learning what works well. Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that. I definitely have higher than average energy levels. And I think you need that in like a founder. You know, I love to get shit done. I'm fast. I think fast. I speak fast. I get shit done fast. So I can definitely relate to all of that. But I think like for me, and I'm sure the same thing will happen to you as well, right? Like when you suddenly have a family and you have kids and you have, I think, you also become very empathetic, very aware of that empathy. And I think like that for me is my superpower, where I feel like my EQ is quite high. Like I read my employees, my team. I have a feeling when something is wrong, and I just know it before it even happens, so I'm prepared for it. Which I'm not sure. Some males I'm sure do, but I think it's just having that sort of, attitude of caring or like thinking about the whole world all the time trains you, as you're a founder, that you also care about your whole team. And, we're going to get shit done, but we're also going to get it done happily, like together, bondedly, which is something that I've come to realize, over the last couple of years as well in this journey. So tell me a woman that's been inspiring you, or women that's been inspiring you.
I already gave it away. So Payal Kadakia was my first love. Yeah. She still is.
Yeah.
And built a consumer marketplace. She dances. Like I've been a Bollywood dancer for the longest time. Competitive Bollywood dancer. Not anymore, but I used to. So I think that was a big inspiration. And I think her story of she was in corporate, then she made the switch. I think you can see similarities, and then you can just believe like you're also able to do it. I think away from that, it takes me like a second. I know there are quite a few. So I love the Spanx founder, all of her stories. Her name is Sarah. I don't want to say Blakely. Sarah Blakely.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about it is she talks a lot about training your mind and how she trained it. Like every time she'd listen to all these podcasts, but podcasts were on big back then, but DVDs, to just tell yourself and to train your mind, yes, I can do it, and pep talk. And also the second thing, where her dad would actually ask her at every single family dinner, what is one thing you failed at? And that to me really stood out, because I was like, whoa, Indians don't do that. Indians just say, why did you fail at that? Period. Like, it's just like such a negative taboo, whereas she was encouraged to talk about her failures and they would celebrate it. So I just thought, oh, that's really cool, and like a very different perspective to sort of like the Asian sort of culture, which forces you to like actually perform it every time, which might not be the best for you in long term, actually. So I think she's actually a really cool one. And then away from that, actually there are a growing crop of female founders like YC. There's a recent person called Y Deng. She created a healthcare consumer marketplace, which has now become $1 billion company. So there are actually loads of them. There's Anne Boden from Starling. She's doing a lot for female founders in UK. And some of the stuff she says and stuff she went through in the finance industry, it's really cool. And I think it's really inspiring. And she is now trying to give back. And it's just really, like, it's very inspirational to read that story and everything she's doing. So I think those are some of the names that pop up. And Sakshi Mittal from Foodhak.
Oh, that's so kind of you. I'm inspired by you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next part of the podcast, we'd love to share some nuggets from our AI engine on foods and why and how they act as medicine. Because like I said, for me, food is a non-negotiable, right? Because in this founder journey, like you have to find the time to look after yourself. And as females, we have this habit of putting ourselves right at the end. At least I know I suffered from that issue last year terribly, which is why the baths helped me a lot. And so for me, understanding the foods and their medicinal properties and how we can incorporate them, is a great way of longevity and making sure I am healthily, being able to accomplish my goals. So let's talk about turmeric, because I know you're very, comfortable with turmeric. We probably consume it every day. And, obviously we all know it's anti-inflammatory, and that's kind of where it stops, right? Okay, anti-inflammatory, it's good for a whole bunch of things, but no one really quite understands why, right? So I thought maybe we can talk about why, right? So it's got these antioxidant properties that help fight oxidative stress. Now, this is a very technical word, and I want to explain what this means. So oxidative stress is a stress on your cells. You're just a bunch of cells and tissues, right? And when there is constant oxidative stress on your cells, say because of pollution or because of stress or because of the bad food or because of alcohol or because of lack of sleep or because of a combination of all these things, which is the life we live, unfortunately, in London, right? When they're constantly stressed, these cells, that's what actually results in aging. Aging not only from the outside, but also from the inside. And that's what causes disease, and that's what, causes a shorter health span, lifespan, and it basically cuts down on your happiness. So incorporating turmeric actually helps with reducing the oxidative stress on your cells. It has this compound called curcumin, which also has an amazing property. Like if you look at the deeper benefit of turmeric, besides the oxidative stress part, it's anti-diabetic. So it's great for your blood sugars, insulin sensitivity, or managing your blood sugar levels. Curcumin is known to be anti-diabetic in clinical research. So this is the exact reason why you should be adding turmeric in your lives. Actually, this product is a turmeric latte, and it does wonders for me. So you could, for those of us who drink lattes, turmeric latte, matcha latte, right? That's a very quick way of adding turmeric first thing in the morning. I actually drink it with hot water because I don't mind the herbal teas in the morning before my coffee even, and we also obviously do them in our khichiris and in a whole bunch of like stews and stuff. But this is the reason why we should be adding a little pinch of turmeric.
Oh my God, I'm grabbing that for myself. That sounds amazing. Yeah. And I've had your khichdi also. That's delicious. So yeah, I can taste the turmeric in there.
Yeah. So this is the reason why, especially women, I believe, should be incorporating this in their diets every day. So this is what we try to do on this podcast is we talk about, just our lives, challenges, learnings as female founders, share that with the community. And then at the same time, also take learnings from this AI engine and go deeper into some of the common foods. Like we all know turmeric is good. Yeah, sure. But let's understand why. Because once you understand why, then you are motivated to, wherever you can, add that turmeric in your lives and understand how exactly that helps you with your long-term goals. So yeah, that's what we do here. Thank you so much for joining us. This was, as always, a super interesting, dynamic, high-energy conversation. I did not expect any less. So thank you for making it so much fun.
Thank you so much, Sakshi, for having me. I am going to grab myself turmeric to go.
It's yours.
And it'll be on subscription every single week. And that was actually, but it was really amazing to hear because I don't think I learned about this stuff. Yeah. Life is so busy. So I think it was super educational. I love it. So thank you so much. And yeah, excited to order Foodhak more and add some of these other things that I learned today.
Thank you for being such a supporter.
Of course.
Thank you for listening to Hak It. I hope you enjoyed the insights and stories that we shared today. Are you hungry for more? Follow us on Instagram at The Foodhak. That's a hack without a C. Or subscribe now to be the first to hear about our next episode when it drops. See you next time.